thank you all for tuning in today. My name is Mary Wassel, and I am joined by the Democratic nominee for City of Erie Mayor, Daria Devlin.
Thanks,
Hi, Daria.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, let's just jump right into it. Election day, the general election now is less than 4 weeks away.
Right.
But I still can't help but feel that the primary was just yesterday. So, since the primary, though, what have you been up to? Who have you been talking to? What have you been hearing from residents?
Yeah, election night, primary election night was so exciting.
Yeah.
I think we were all so energized by the result, and I was so honored to receive the Democratic nomination from the voters. So, you know what? I thought we'd have some time to rest, and we didn't. We just got right to work. One of the first things I did actually was I traveled to Allentown and to Harrisburg and to Lancaster because I really wanted to make connections. We talked about that in the primary. Make connections outside of Erie, find out what's going on, what's working. So traveled and met the mayors of Allentown and Lancaster, wonderful humans. I told the mayor of Allentown, we're coming for you, buddy. We need that third spot back. Spent some time in Harrisburg as well, making some connections with DCED there. So that was like early on in the summer. And then as the summer went on, lots of conversations, talks around the city. I went to a lot of neighborhood watch meetings. I did some police ride-alongs, just really trying to make the most of this time to listen and learn and do as much as I can to prepare myself for the general. Yeah. Now we're here and we're talking to voters and talking about the issues again. Really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Allentown there, and as we know, Erie's population has been declining for some time now. So how do you plan to not only attract new residents, but also retain the current ones that call Erie home? Because ultimately, I feel like there is that, there has to be that balance.
Absolutely. So Erie is down at about 92,000 residents, and that's just not acceptable. And I don't think we as a community want that for ourselves. And I think there is so much potential in Erie that we're just not tapping right now. So when I think about this, look, it's a multi-pronged approach. First of all, right now with the federal government, kind of how things are going, we might not see that influx of new Americans that we have seen. They've been really helpful in getting our numbers up, even where they are. So we need to be thoughtful about the gaps that now the new federal regulations are going to do. So, how do we make sure we're keeping folks here? Well, we need to make sure our neighborhoods are strong. And that's really a priority of mine. Housing is a serious problem in our community. We've talked about this, the housing continuum, all the way from the homeless that we see on the streets to, up to middle market housing. We don't have enough. So we need to increase the supply of housing, working on that. We also need to make sure we have enough living wage jobs for our residents. This is how we lift up the community. So, we have a lot of really strong family-owned businesses here. Let's make sure we're growing them. We're giving them what they need to grow. I've had conversations with business owners that tell me the airport is a problem. They can't grow if they don't have an airport where they can be bringing in, having meetings, expanding their reach. So we need to be focused on that, making sure those living wage jobs are staying there, housing, our neighborhoods. That's how we keep folks. And then we got to go out and market. We have to be Erie's cheerleader. We have to tell the story of what Erie is and can be. And I intend to be right at the forefront of that.
Absolutely, yeah. So also, our youth play a huge role in our population, and I have conversations with young people that, maybe feel a little ignored or like their voice isn't heard. So first, when talking to our youth and young people, how do you make sure that, they know that their voice is heard? And then also, how do we engage them? Because ultimately, they are the future of Erie.
Absolutely. So first of all, we really want to make sure we have either a mayor's council or work with city council on a youth council so we can get those voices in on leadership roles. That's incredibly important. But not every youth is going to be a leader. Not every youth is ready to take that step. So we also have to make sure we're providing safe spaces for growth, for exploration, for enrichment for our youth. And in fact, just this morning, I was having a conversation with someone to say, I'd like to create an Office of Youth within City Hall that can really oversee programming, funding for programs for youth, and then work really closely with Erie's public schools. I had lunch with the new superintendent this week, and I told her if I'm elected, we need to have a standing monthly meeting so we can be sharing concerns, challenges, and making sure we are really addressing those together. It's critical for our future.
Absolutely. And, I've had the pleasure of being born and raised in Erie, but, you don't have to be born and raised here to know that there are so many amazing organizations doing amazing work to move Erie forward. But sometimes, I can't help but feel that those efforts often are siloed. So how do you go about, if elected mayor to, convene all those key players to continue to help Erie moving forward, because ultimately we're all working towards the same goal.
Absolutely. You know, Erie is not short of resources. I would say we have lots of resources, lots of programs. We just somehow don't find a way to get them to all work together. I think we have a couple things going for us here. You know, Infinite Erie has really stepped into the space, and I am so grateful for the leadership of Kim Thomas and the managing board of directors of Infinite Erie. They're taking the lead on things like housing and trying to bring groups together. These are groups that have not worked together before, you know, neighborhood organizations and the Housing Authority of the City of Erie, the Redevelopment Authority. So I really am going to rely on Infinite Erie in many ways to lead us forward, particularly with the housing issue. But I would say this. The mayor's job is to be the convener in chief, and I would say the conductor. You know, we talked about this in the primary. There's a symphony. It's the mayor's job to direct and make sure it's all making music together. So we're going to use that bully pulpit. We're going to use that power from City Hall to make sure we're all working together. And I think most importantly, toward a shared vision. We know where we want to go. We all as a community, I think, can agree. So having that shared vision, getting everybody excited, including, by the way, our workers at City Hall who are doing the lion's share of the work, we need to get them engaged in that vision too. I really believe once we're all working together, we can unlock Erie's potential.
Yeah, I remember watching that walk and talk about being the conductor, and I mean that sums it up perfectly.
Right.
And even too with Infinite Erie, you know, they're coming out soon with their 2026 playbook. They're working on it, and very exciting.
Absolutely. And another priority that we're working with them on is the Bayfront development. You know, I mean, this is a critical part of our city's future for lots of reasons, for property tax, for, you know, recreation, for tourism, for economic development. So I'm really excited to kind of work with them and understand we need to create a master plan for our Bayfront. Right now we have some landowners, you know, the Scott Enterprises, they own land, they're doing great work, they have their own plan. You have the Port Authority down there, and we have Erie Events with, you know, the convention center. We all need to get in a room and say, how does this work for the whole community, and how do we engage the citizens so they have a voice in the future of that Bayfront? It's messy down there right now, we all know that, but it's not always going to be. And so let's make sure we're ready for that development. So that's another place collaboration is gonna be critical.
Yeah, lot of exciting things on the horizon and in progress. So we kind of talked a lot about, you know, different priorities, you know, that are your priorities. There we go. So if elected, what can the residents expect within the first 90 days there for you?
Yeah, well, I talked, you know, a little bit about City Hall. And I am a believer that if City Hall is not working correctly, it's going to be really hard to get things done. Because again, these are the workers. These are the people who pick up your garbage and make sure your street is plowed and make sure that, you know, code enforcement's working and grants are getting, you know, pushed out. So I really want to spend my early days just building the trust and the relationships with our folks at City Hall. And I think we can really do that, getting them on board with the vision. So that's going to be priority number one.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that they're bought in and that they understand how they fit in this whole symphony. So I'm going to be doing that first. We're going to keep our eye on the housing work that Infinite Erie is doing. I think we're really going to see some progress on that very, very early on. We need to create a fund for some of that work to happen, and I want to be really engaged in that. As I mentioned, the creation of this Office of Youth. And then, let's be honest, we've had a lot of pain in our community this summer after the death of Marcella Woodard. A lot of people are feeling a lot of tension. We can't control what's going to happen, what the outcome of that is going to be. We understand that's with the state and with the county. But we can, in our community, begin to heal. And so one other really first initiative of mine will be to work to provide space for conversation between our community members and our police. You know, our Erie police force was not involved in that tragedy, but that doesn't mean that there's not space to heal and make sure we have strong relationships. So building on the work that's already been done, I want to create those spaces within our first year so that our community members feel heard and our police have an opportunity to learn more and build that trust. I think that just makes everybody safer, and I'm looking forward to doing that as well.
We've covered a lot today,
Yes.
But I know there's still so much more to talk about. So first, do you have anything else to add? And then also, where can people go if they want to learn more about you and your campaign?
Yeah, well, let's be honest. As you mentioned, the election is not far off, November 4th, but you can vote early right now at the county courthouse. So that's open. Folks need to make a plan to vote. So whether you're going to vote early, whether you're going to request a mail-in ballot, which you can do until October 28th, or whether you're going to go in on November 4th, really want to make sure people understand they got to vote this year. Local elections are so critically important. We've got a county executive race, we've got city council races, county council races, a city controller, school board races, judge retention, where we're asking people to vote yes. This is critical for our community. So number one, make a plan to vote. Number two, if you still need more information, our website, dariaforerie.com, lots of information about our campaign. We are still doing these weekly walk and talks. I honestly think people are a little sick of me. I'm a little sick of me right now, but we've got a couple more to go. We're going to do one on youth. We're going to do one on economic development. So, tune into those as well. Our social media is fantastic. Instagram and Facebook, Daria for Erie. So look, just educate yourself. Yes. There's lots of information out there, but whatever you do, make that plan, make sure your voice is heard in this election.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Daria, for joining us. And thank you all of you for tuning in. Like Daria mentioned, early voting is now open at the courthouse. So make your plan to vote on or before November 4th. Thanks.
Thank you.